Hey, what's up guys? I'm Hoshi from Manarant, and today the Alchemy set just dropped from Dominaria United. It's introducing 30 new cards into the Historic and Alchemy format, and we're going to do a full set review today and see if those cards are going to be worth it for you. Also, I will put in the description a code that you can use to get 3 free packs of this Alchemy set. It's PlayDMUA, but I'll have it all spelled out in there because it has to be in caps and stuff. So if you want to grab those. So let's just jump right into it and start reviewing these cards. In the first set that we're going to go over are the white cards. And so first we have Benelish Knight Counselor, and it is a 1-drop at white. It is a creature human knight at uncommon. It has enlist. It is also a 2/1. It has whenever Benelish Knight Counselor enlists a creature, you get a boon with when you cast your next creature spell, that creature enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. So boon is like a temporary emblem that you have, and so when you cast your next card, it'll get that +1/+1, and then the boon will go away. So this is pretty good. I feel like for a 1-drop, it's 2/1, so the stats are okay. With the enlist, it can get bigger, but you're getting something out of the enlist at least. So yeah, I like this. It's a knight, a human knight. It seems interesting. Is it great? No, but it's a cool card. And it's uncommon, so it's not going to hurt you to craft this. Next, we have Priest of Possibility. This is a 1 and a white for a core cleric at rare. It's a 2/2. Whenever Priest of Possibilities enters the battlefield, look at the top 7 cards of your library. If a card among them has flying, Priest of Possibilities perpetually gets flying. The same is true for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Protection, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance, and then Shuffle. So this feels pretty meh to me for his ability. So you're looking at these cards, and then he gets to basically gain all those abilities. He's a 2/2, so even if he does have Indestructible and Lifelink or whatever, it's just, I don't know. It feels okay, and you can whiff with this too. So he might get nothing, or he just might not get, I don't know what kind of deck this has to be set up in. The one thing that's good about this card that I will say is that it doesn't have to be another creature. It says any card from among them. So that could be an equipment or an aura or anything like that. He will gain those abilities that that card has on there. So there could be some potential if you're running this in like some kind of equipment or aura deck. I can see him. Is he worth the rare craft? I don't think so. All right, next we have Pull of the Mist Moon. This is a 3-drop at 1 and 2 white for an enchantment at uncommon. It has a kicker cost of 1 and a blue. When Pull of the Mist Moon enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Pull of the Mist Moon leaves the battlefield. So pretty standard enchantment removal, except for this is 2 white, which is a little heavy. But then it has a kicker cost. So when Pull of the Mist Moon enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, choose a non-land permanent card in your hand. It perpetually gains whenever this permanent enters the battlefield. Exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until this permanent leaves the battlefield. So that's kind of cool. For an extra 2, you can turn something else into your hand into also enchantment removal. So if you got extra mana, so it's pretty cool. The restrictive mana makes it a little harder to play, but it's decent. All right, so that's white, and it's meh kind of so far, nothing super exciting. Let's go to blue next. Blue, we have first and foremost the Oracle of the Alphas. This is a 3-drop. It's 2 and a blue for a creature bird wizard at mythic rare. It's a 2/3 with flying, and when Oracle of the Alphas enters the battlefield, conjure the power 9 into your library, then shuffle. When Oracle of the Alphas attacks, scry 1. Okay, so let's take a look at what the Power 9 is. We'll go over to MTGA zone right here because Wizards website is not doing the greatest with the links. So here we go. This is the Power 9. A bunch of them are these Mox cards, which are super expensive. The Power 9, if you don't know what it is, it's on the reserve list. They're all very, very expensive cards that are no longer printed unless it's by Wizards, and they're like $1,000 proxies or whatever. If you want to watch our podcast where we talk about that, because they basically did just reprint all these. It's ridiculous though. Anyways, so we have Black Lotus, all of the Moxes, and then these are basically just artifacts that, you know, come in for free and then give you mana in some way. They are great if you draw them in your opening hand, I feel like, which is really what makes them powerful. These other cards on their own are just powerful, just straight up, which is Ancestral Recall, which is the best card draw that there is, which is a 1 blue for draw 3 cards. We have Time Walk, which is 2 to take an extra turn. It's super powerful. And then Time Twister, which is a wheel effect that allows you to, you know, discard your hand or shuffle everything into your library and then draw 7 more cards. So these are all 3 of these are very powerful cards, and the downside of this that a lot of people have been criticizing about these cards is that it's a 3-drop, so then it shuffles all of these in, and so what happens if you start pulling out these Moxes and Black Lotus and stuff later in the game? These aren't great things to draw later, which is possibly true. Wouldn't you really just want Ancestral Recall or Time Walk or something like that, right? So that's where I think this card comes into play, which is Diviner of Fates, which is also an Alchemy card at Mythic. And he allows you to discard something, and then it'll seek a card of the same type out of your library. So you can do something like Boon of the Wishgiver, which is a sorcery, right? And then discard that, and then, hey, what are you gonna grab? You might have a chance of grabbing Time Walk when you do something, when you cycle something like that. So I think there is potential with this card, with the, you know, inclusion of other cards like Diviner of Fate and stuff could make this playable. You know, they're both wizards, so yeah, there's something there. I think this is not a write-off card. That's just kind of like a little niche thing. Yeah, you know, the Moxes and stuff or whatever. So yeah, it's potential. Next we have Skyrider Djinn, and this is a 4-drop. It's a creature Djinn at rare, and it is a 3/4, so its stats are okay right now. It has Domain. When Skyrider Djinn enters the battlefield, conjure a random card from his spell book into your hand. Then if you have fewer cards in your hand than the number of basic land types that you have, you repeat this process. So basically, if you know, Domain, like let's say you have all 5 lands, right? If you have less than 5 lands, you'll just keep filling it up with his spell book. So let's take a look at his spell book real quick. It's not great. Stifle's in there. See the Truth is pretty good, and then there's just a bunch of other stuff that's kind of like meh. It's not, none of it's great. None of it's super exciting, but you can get multiple of them. So I don't know. I'm not very hype on this card, especially for a 4-drop like this. Maybe in the late game it can help you pull out some cards, but yeah, I'm not super excited about it. Next, we have Trove Mage, which is 3. It's 2 and a blue for a creature human wizard at uncommon. He is a 2/2. When Trove Mage enters the battlefield, seek an artifact card from among the top 10 cards in your library, then shuffle. Once again, meh. I think this would have been good if it was a 2-drop. 3 just feels like a bit much for this. I feel like maybe this is meant to work with equipments to pull those out of the deck. I don't know. I feel like there's better equipment cards. Blue is not the best with equipments either, so I see this going unused. And then next we have Vesuvian Mist, which is a 2-drop. It's an instant at uncommon, and it has a kicker for 1 and a black. So these are Dimir colors. Return target non-token, non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So you can't target a token with this. Yeah, so that's weird that you can't return a token. That part kind of sucks about this. If the spell was kicked, conjure a duplicate of that card into your hand. It perpetually gains. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast this spell. So that's fantastic. I do like this card. I like that it's a non-land permanent. I don't like that it's non-token because that's one of the nice things about, like, you know, return to hand cards is that you can just get rid of a token with that. It basically destroys it. But you can conjure a duplicate of whatever it is into the hand. This works into some Dimir strategies where you're trying to steal your opponent's cards. So I like this card. I think it's cool. That the non-token thing is kind of a downside. So blue seems okay. Blue seems okay with the, you know, the Oracle and the Vesuvius. I like those. The Djinn and the Treasure Mage or whatever. Then we have black. And black we have Darigas's Whelp, and it is a 2-drop dragon at uncommon. It's a 2/1, so its stats are and then it has a kicker for 1 and a red, flying. Whenever you draw a dragon card, it perpetually gets +1/+1. Okay, so that's all right. When Dragios Whelp enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, seek a dragon card, and then the Whelp and that card each perpetually get +1/+1. Okay, so if you got some extra mana, you don't have anything to do, you can cast this guy, get a dragon out of your deck, and then they both get +1/+1. So this is okay, I feel like. You know, it's nice that it's rounding out. Definitely a good card for Historic Brawl if you're doing a dragon deck, I feel like. Next, let's go to Diminished Returner, and this is a 3-drop. It is 1 and 2 black for a creature Phyrexian Skeleton, which this is the only Phyrexian that I've seen in this set so far, which is weird since it's a, you know, Phyrexian invasion set. And then we have an uncommon, and it is a 4/3. So the stats are not great because it also enters the battlefield tapped like most skeletons do. Then it has 2 black, Diminished Returner, perpetually gets -1/-1, then return it to the battlefield, which it's coming back tapped. Activate only if Diminished Returner is in your graveyard and its toughness is 2 or greater. So you get to do this one time. It's not good. I don't feel like this is a good card for the, you know, the mana cost of it and the restrictive mana cost. Then we have Jizung, the Bone Cobbler, which is a 1 and a black for a legendary creature, Spirit Artificer at Mythic, and it is a 1/3. This is an interesting card. It has tap, target creature card in your graveyard perpetually becomes an artifact. You may cast that card this turn. Pretty interesting. Besides this last part right here, it loses all other card types. So it just becomes an artifact. So it is no longer a creature, which is a pretty major downside to this card. I was pretty excited when I first started reading this card until that last part right there. So there are some interesting possibilities, I think, with this card. If you know, it might take a little bit of time to think of some kind of strategy. Turning things into artifacts is interesting. That might help when Lodestone Golem comes into play later on, but I'm not sure what kind of creatures you would want to turn just into artifacts that sit there and are not a creature anymore. So if anyone's got any ideas about that, let me know. I'm very interested in this card. I think it's a cool design. I'm just not sure of what application it's gonna, you know, come into yet. And then we have Smogbelcher Chariot, which is a 3-drop, 2 and a black for a vehicle at rare. It's a 3/3 menace, death touch, and lifelink. Whenever Smogbelcher Chariot attacks target creature that crewed it, this turn perpetually gains your choice of menace, death touch, or lifelink. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is a rare. It feels okay, somewhat powerful. I don't know. All right, so black. I'm feeling pretty meh on this. So far, not excited really about anything. Then we have red. Okay, red is much better. Okay, so we have Gitu Embercoiler, which is a 2-drop creature, human wizard at rare, and it is a 2/2 with prowess. And then at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may discard a card. If you do, seek a card with greater mana value and then exile it. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that exiled card. So this is pretty good, I feel like. The stats are right on for, you know, the wizard with prowess 2/2, but it has that ability right at pre-combat where you can get rid of some card like a land or something that you don't want, right? And then it's gonna grab something else of a greater mana value out of your deck and exile it. That's the one thing where, you know, this might play into other cards like that one legendary creature that we have that you know, gets +1/+1 whenever you exile things, and so grabbing burn spells and things like that. I feel like this is a good card. Next we have Goblin Influx Array, which is a 4-drop, and it is an enchantment. It's a goblin enchantment, and then we have it at rare. All right, so goblin spells you cast cost a red less to cast. Okay, so that's pretty crazy. And then it has, this is even crazier if there is no red cost to it. So if it's something like a changeling that, you know, doesn't have any type of red cost to it, then it reduces it by 1 in that case as well. So That's very nice as well. And then at the beginning of your end step, conjure a random card from Goblin Influx Array Spellbook into your hand. Okay, so at base value, just looking at this, it doesn't seem that great, right? Because it's a 4-drop that reduces your goblin spells. Okay, goblins kind of come down pretty quick, right? So this doesn't seem awesome at this point. It does, get you a card at the end. So let's take a look and see what cards we have in the Goblin Array Spellbook. And the spellbook is pretty good for this. The Goblin War Chief, Goblin Chieftain, Skirk Prospector, Brash Taunter, Relic Robber. We have the Battle Cry Goblin. So there's a lot of good Legion Warblast. There's a lot of good goblins in this spellbook actually. So I do think this is a pretty good card now. The spellbook is actually pretty strong for this, and it's going to keep getting you goblins. So this keeps goblins going in the late game. If you're able to deal, you get board wiped or something like that, this could be a definite comeback card for that. So I do think this is a pretty strong card. Next we have Goblin Morale Sergeant, which is a 2-drop, 1 in a red for a creature Goblin Soldier at uncommon. It's 2/1. It has haste and enlist on it. Whenever a Goblin Moral Sergeant enlists a non-token creature, you may conjure a duplicate of that creature into the top 5 cards of your library at random. The duplicate perpetually gets +1, +0, and haste, which is pretty good. This guy can come in with haste. He can get buffed up. You basically get to copy something else that you have on the battlefield, and then that card is going to get +1, +0, and haste. You can start making duplicates of things. This is a good card, I think. I like this card. And it's a soldier, so you can potentially play this in soldier decks or just other decks. It doesn't really need to go into a goblin deck. I feel like this can work in other things as well. But yeah, I like this card. I think it's pretty good. And then next we have Spellchain Scatter, which is a 1 red for an instant at uncommon. It has kicker blue. Whenever you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, conjure a duplicate of that spell into your hand. If this spell wasn't kicked, discard that duplicate discard that duplicate at the beginning of your next end step. So wow, this is pretty cheap for a powerful effect of being able to copy a spell into your hand. So spell slinger decks that want to cast a lot of spells could definitely be able to utilize something like this, where they're getting their spell trigger count up there and they're grabbing more of a certain spell into their hand, something like Grape Shot or something with this. This seems pretty good. This is what Spell Slinger wants to do. So it seems like an interesting card. All right, next we got green. Oh, so first red, pretty good. Red has been by far the best out of all these. All of these cards have potential, I feel like. So red is very strong showing in comparison to the other colors so far. Next we have green. We have Morrowind's Kindred. So let's take a look at that over here. Morrowind's Kindred is a 4-drop and X for a sorcery at mythic rare. Okay, this is a lot for a an elf card. Conjure a card named Morrowind the Nurturer and X cards named Llanowar Elves into your hand. Okay, so for 4 you get Morrowind, and then if you pay X, you can start getting Llanowar Elves for every 1 that you pay. So Morrowind is fantastic, but she's a 3-drop, okay? And she's great to get early. She can grow like crazy. So getting a bunch of Llanowar Elves to like drop after you drop her onto the battlefield and grow her is pretty good. I just don't see where this card fits. Like, I don't really know. I guess you could play this outside of elf decks. Maybe that would be fun to do. I don't know. I don't see the use for this card though. I feel like elves have way better cards than this, especially in historic. So maybe in alchemy. I don't know. Next we have Nantuko Slicer, a 4-drop creature insect at rare. It's a 3/2 and it has a kicker for black. When Nantuko Slicer enters the battlefield, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. If this spell was kicked, conjure a duplicate of a target card in an opponent's graveyard into your hand. It perpetually gains. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast the spell. So for 5 you can get 2 cards basically. It seems okay. If the mana cost was down a little bit more on this, I think it'd be great. Like I mean, 1 more down and it would be very good. So yeah, it's okay. This isn't too much to get 2 extra cards, so I don't know. I don't really know what deck this would fit into. There are better things to pull stuff out of your graveyard with. So next we have Vine Soul Spider. It is a 2-drop at 1 and a green for an elemental spider at uncommon with 3/2 in reach. Okay, so stats are all right. At the beginning of your end step, put a random land card from your graveyard into the battlefield. Pretty cool if you are running some kind of strategy where you want lands in your graveyard so you can pull them out or do something with them. I guess this is pretty interesting. The only thing that sucks about it is that it's random. It'd be way better if it was like pull a specific land out and put it in there, but still pretty decent and fun for some type of strategy like that. I like weird specific cards like this that play into niche strategies, so I like this card. Next we have Wandering Treefolk, which is a 2-drop. It's a 1 and a green for a Treefolk at uncommon. It has vigilance and it is a 2/3 with domain. Its domain cost is 8, so 7 and a green for seek a creature card, which is pretty nice. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each basic land type that you control, so you can get this down to 3 to seek a creature card. It's okay. Yeah, nothing great about this thing. It's really not going to be useful until you have about like 5 different lands or so. So yeah, I don't this just doesn't feel like historic power level to me. Next we have the multicolored cards. So these are pretty cool looking. Let's look at Arvad, Weatherlight Smuggler. He is a white and a black for a legendary creature vampire knight at rare. He's a 1/1 with death touch and lifelink. And then at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, Arvad, Weatherlight Smuggler, perpetually gets +1/+1, where X is the number of creatures that died this turn. This ability also triggers while Arvad is in your graveyard. That part is cool. I like that you could just be like board wiping or whatever, and he's just, so even if you get board wiped, right, and he goes into your graveyard, right, he's still at the end step going to get all of those +1/+1 triggers on there. And so if you have a way of reanimating him, he could be huge when he comes back. So I do think this is a pretty cool card. I don't know if it's really going to fit well in vampires and maybe knights. I don't know. So you're going to have some kind of reanimator strategy for him to be useful to have in there. Next we have Bloodsprout Talisman, and this is a black and a green, so Golgari for an artifact at rare. Bloodsprout Talisman enters the battlefield tapped. Tap, pay 1 life, choose a non-land card in your hand. It perpetually gains the spell cost 1 less to cast. This is super cool. It sucks that it comes in tapped, but man, this ability is super fun. That you get to perpetually, reduce the cost of something. So for bounce effects and pulling stuff back from the graveyard, I definitely see this being played in like some kind of jank strategies where you're trying to, bounce things or pull things out of your graveyard. I don't know. I like this a lot. Then we have Darigaz, I don't know, Shivan Companion, and it is a 5-drop 2, a black, red, and green mana for a legendary creature dragon at Mythic. It is a 5/5 for 5 with flying. So okay stats. And then at the beginning of your end step, conjure a random card from Darigaz Shivan Companion spellbook into exile face down with 3 egg counters on it. It gains at the beginning of your upkeep. If this card is exiled, remove an egg counter from it. Then if there are no egg counters on it, put it into the battlefield. Okay, so right off the bat, he doesn't do anything until end step, and then he puts something into exile, which is basically it's being suspended for 3 turns, and then it gets to enter the battlefield. So this is slow. This is a slow card. So right when you cast him, you're not getting the effect of another dragon until at least 3 turns. So these better be some good dragons, right? To have to wait that long. And looking at the spell book for him, good news, they are. There's a lot of really good dragons in here. A lot of mythic. They're almost all mythic or rare dragons in here. I think there's one that is not the black dragon, which is still pretty decent. It's a 7-drop. So a lot of good dragons actually that you're getting in here. And then red dragon, you're getting a ton of different dragons, and so pretty decent Shivan dragons in there, of course. Terrible, but Terror of the Peaks, Leyline Tyrant, there's some pretty sweet dragons in here. So it's a fun card. I don't think it's going to be very competitive because of just how slow it is, and there's just better, faster dragons. But for something like Brawl, this is going to be fun. All right, next we got Juggernaut Peddler, and it is white and a black for a human artificer at rare, and it is a 2/2 with vigilance. When Juggernaut Peddler enters the battlefield, target player reveals all non-land cards in their hand. You may choose one of those cards. If you do, that player exiles it and then conjures a card named Juggernaut into their hand. So let's see what a Juggernaut is. A Juggernaut is a 4-drop, and it is a 5/3 that has to attack it every turn and can't be blocked by walls. It's a weird card. And it's also bad. I don't know why. I mean, you get to exile something out of their hand. That's fun. But then you give them a 5/3. How is this rare? This is not great. I don't. Okay, anyways, Naombi, Beloved Protector. She is white and a blue for a legendary creature, human cleric at rare. She has 2/2 and flash, and so this is like Teferi's, I think, daughter or wife. And then when Naombi, Beloved Protector, enters the battlefield, choose target non-land creature card in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. So this is very similar to an earlier card that she had that was exactly like this, but then return it to the battlefield. It perpetually gains whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability. Draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. So okay, so it's better than our earlier version that exists. So okay, this is pretty good. Next we have Protein War Engine. This is a red and a white for a vehicle at Mythic, and it is a 0/4. As Protein War Engine enters the battlefield, draft a card from Protein War Engine's spellbook and exile it. Whenever Protein War Engine becomes crewed until the end of turn, it becomes a copy of the exiled card, except it's a vehicle artifact in addition to its other things. So another spellbook. Here we go with another spellbook. Here we go. Let's take a look at this one spellbook. It's okay. It's not great. I don't think it's worth this being a mythic. Some of the good ones are Captivating Crew, Blade Historian, Sarah Paragon. So you have to crew it to be able to get these. And there's a good chance that you whiff on this, so I'm not super hype on the War Engine. So maybe it's a 0/4 that sits there until it's crewed for some reason. So yeah, I don't know. Next we have Slimefoot, who's a returning card, and then he is black and a green for a legendary creature fungus at rare, 2/2. And then, hey, guess what? Whenever a swamp or forest enters the battlefield under your control, you get to draft a card from his spellbook. All right, so this is the last spellbook, thank God. So here we go. And guess what's in his spellbook? It's a whole bunch of funguses. Fungus, 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 fungus. Everything's a fungus, and none of them are particularly super strong. There's an enchantment, actually, and an elemental in here too, but all of it's kind of rotating around the central idea. None of them are insanely powerful, really, but you can get this effect to trigger a lot. It's anytime a swamp or forest enters the battlefield, so this potentially can get you a lot of fungus cards in your hand. So if you're playing some fun fungus tribal, this could be cool. Next we have Teferi's Contingency, and this is white and 2 blue for an instant at rare, and the art is I'm not digging it. Next we have Counter Target Spell. Each card in its controller's graveyard, hand, and library with the same name as that spell perpetually gains. This spell costs 2 more to cast. Pretty good for a counter spell that is going to make the remaining cards that they have harder to cast. The mana value is quite restrictive for this counter spell, but this has a pretty good upside to it, especially if you're countering some major spell that is the theme of their deck. This could be very annoying for them, and if you're running 4 of these, you can just keep countering the next spell, and then it's 4. So this is a pretty annoying card but it seems pretty strong for a control. Next we have Tiana, Angelic Mechanic, and she is a 3-drop, a 1, a red, and a white for a legendary creature, Angel Artificer at rare, and then she is a 3/2 with flying. When Tiana, Angelic Mechanic, or another legendary creature you control crews a vehicle, that vehicle perpetually gets +1/+0. And meh, I don't know what this card is. I mean, when Greasefang exists, why would you run this? It doesn't make sense to me. This is not great. And then next we have Voldalian Tide Mage, and it is a 3-drop with 1, a green, and a blue for a creature, Merfolk Wizard at rare. It's a 3/3. Whenever one or more other non-token creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, choose one of those creatures, conjure a duplicate of the chosen creature into your hand. So it's only one that you get to conjure into your hand. It's a 3-drop for a 3. It doesn't have any other special abilities of it, but he doesn't have to attack along with those other creatures, so I guess that's nice. And then you get to conjure a duplicate of something that hits. So if your strategy is to double, you know, some kind of card, this seems like a jank card to me. Not particularly strong. I don't think it fits in Merfolk very much, but it could fit in some other kind of strategy where you need a specific card and you need to copy it a bunch of times, maybe, but I'm not super hype on this card either. And lastly, we have Coalition Construct, which is a 3-drop artifact creature construct at rare. Come on, Mouth, you can get through this last card. All right, and it is a 2/2. As Coalition Construct enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Coalition Construct is the chosen type in addition to its other types. When Coalition Construct enters the battlefield, other creatures you control of the chosen type and creature cards of that type in your hand perpetually get +1/+1. So interesting card. This is one of those fun ones where you get to, it's like a shapeshifter ability where it gets to become something else. This helps pad out, you know, creature archetypes like slivers and other things that don't have like a very large character roster. So you can have this, you know, help buff those things up, you know, things like werewolves and stuff. So this is a fun card. Does it deserve to be rare? I don't know. But yeah, I do like this card. It's not amazing. Okay, and that's it. So, wow, what do I think of this set? Wow, it's pretty bland. I'm not gonna lie, for an alchemy set, which is supposed to be a pretty boosted power level on everything, there's not a ton of things that got me excited. I like the Bloodsprout Talisman, you know, green it's really red. Red has like a lot of the cards that I think are pretty strong. Other than that, there's just really not a lot that I'm excited about, or I would even really want to craft. So for me, I will play the 3. I'll get my 3 free packs out of this thing, and I'm just gonna craft whatever else I need to, if I need to. So yeah, let me know what you think. Do you guys think this is a good set? I'm kind of meh on this. Just at this time, you know, something might creep up. It always does. Someone might be able to find, you know, a way to make like this Rezug pretty cool. So I do like this guy, but yeah, anyways, thanks for joining us, guys, and you know, stay tuned for our podcast and other gameplays, and yeah, I will see you guys next time. Oh, don't forget, like and subscribe. See you guys. Peace out.